Welcome to the Co-parenting Chronicles. I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Jenna.
And this is a podcast about something we didn't exactly plan on becoming experts in.
But definitely learned the hard way, co-parenting.
We're not therapists. We're not lawyers. Well, Jenna actually is, but we'll get to that later. We definitely don't have it all figured out.
What we are is two parents who decided that even though our relationship isn't common, our commitment to raising healthy and happy kids is.
We'll talk about growth and boundaries, respect, and what it actually looks like to build a functional co-parenting relationship, even when it's hard.
Some episodes will be just us, having honest conversations we wish we'd heard earlier.
And others may include experts, real-life stories, our partners, and practical tools that you can actually use.
Whether you're newly separated, years into co-parenting, or supporting someone who is, this space is for you.
Because co-parenting isn't about being perfect.
It's about being intentional.
And choosing your kids, even on the hard days.
Thanks for being here,
the sitcom that nobody asked for.
All right. So, sleepovers, the co-parenting battle that nobody talks about. Today, we're going to be talking about rules around kids having sleepovers at other people's houses, and kind of talk about the different dynamics between like when one house says yes and the other house says absolutely not. And the kids end up treating it like a constitutional rights issue. So
All the tears that come when I say no for a sleepover. So I think what's the best way to kind of just lean into this is that we had a tricky situation between us as co-parents not that long ago where there was a sleepover that was approved while the girls were at your house. So as in they were going to go sleep over at somebody else's house, but you and Andy had given them permission like that. And I was out of town at the time, and so I had found out while I was out of town that a sleepover was happening, and it just made me super uncomfortable, and I felt like a boundary was crossed because we had previously talked about just, sleepovers in general, and
okay. And obviously, I assume that Andy had talked to you because I was also not home. So, like,
sure.
you know, that's the other thing about co-parenting, right? And like being in a role like mine, that can make it kind of challenging, where it's like, well, I assumed dad would reach out to you and, make sure that it was okay that your kids were going to have a sleepover somewhere else. And
Which I also think
proceed
it's
then.
hard because I feel like because a lot of co-parents have, like, the my house, my rules, So it's like,
Right.
I am appreciative of the fact that I voiced to you that I was upset and you came back and I wouldn't say apologize like you had done something wrong, but you just apologized for m- that I felt like I wasn't heard and like a boundary had been crossed, which I also appreciate because you didn't have to do that. At the core of it, it is your house and they are your rules. It is the children are with you and Andy at that point. And
Right.
so I think like that's what makes our relationship so great is that active communication and
Yeah,
just that,
definitely.
I
Able to be honest with each other, like
correct.
when we're upset about something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do you remember, like, how did that make you feel when you got that text from me where I was just texting you and I was just upset and I had had a few cocktails. I was more upset, but I think it was also just like fear for me. Like, I am the mom who isn't okay with sleepovers right now.
Right.
Maybe not for forever, but right now at the stage where like
Right.
I am not okay with sleepovers. Whereas I feel like you and
Yeah.
I aren't. Like you don't really have that feeling.
Right. So like I'm kind of in between on the sleepover thing. Like I feel like you, but I can also be like, oh, like it just for me it really depends. And we'll get into it more later when we kind of start talking about just different experiences and everything like that with sleepovers. But for me, it made me, I felt really bad. Like I ended up being away at a musical with my mom. So I wasn't home when the decision was made. Um and I wrongly assumed that Andy would reach out to Chelsea and just even if he didn't ask permission, I thought he would at least just send her a text and let her know.
Sure.
Um it seems like something he would do, like maybe not ask permission, but I just thought that maybe he would at least contact you because he did know how you felt about sleepovers. And bear in mind, these are like
tricky. It's
and
like you don't have to ask my permission for them to like go anywhere or to take them anywhere. Like
Right.
it's just the sleepover. It's such a touchy topic. Like
Right. And like bear in mind these people like the house that they slept at, or like Andy's been best friends with the dad
right.
for
And
a million
we're
years.
friends with the
So
mom
right.
and our
Exactly.
kids have play dates together, so it's not they're not
Right.
unfamiliar people at all. If anything,
Right.
they're overly familiar. Like
Yeah, which is why I think that like another reason, like another layer as to why he just didn't ask. But I remember coming home and the first thing I said when I walked in the door was, "Oh, where are the girls?" Like, because he was, "Are you putting the sofa together?"
finally putting that sofa together.
And I was like, "Wow, you got a lot done, like where are the girls?" Obviously, River was sleeping already. So, and he goes, "Oh, they're sleeping over at Casey and Ashley's house." And I was like, "Well, did you ask Chelsea?" And that was the first thing I said, "Did you ask Chelsea?" He's like, "No," like, "Oh, whatever." So then I was kind of like, then I felt awkward. I was like, "Should I preemptively tell Chelsea?"
Sure.
And maybe I should have, but I don't know. And maybe I should have. Maybe it would have made you feel a little bit better knowing that, like,
Yeah.
this wasn't it rather than because I think that you initially thought that maybe Andy and I had plans and we were having them sleep over there because like we were, out of town or whatever. Like
Right.
because we share locations with each other. So you probably saw I was in Illinois and you probably assumed that Andy and I like went on a date or something. I don't know if that's true, but like because just I remember your message was like, oh, like if you guys had other things going on, then we would have made other arrangements for the kids. So maybe I should have preemptively texted you, but I felt awkward. Like it was one of those like
Oh,
that place that I hold like as like a stepmom. Like I'm like, do I say something or just wait for her to find out and then like she can talk to Andy about it? Like, do I have a say in this
right.
situation? So like it's just one of those like awkward in between things that can happen when you are a step parent and not the actual parent. And obviously, like we've been doing this for a little over 4 years now, and we're learning as we go. And that was definitely a learning moment for me because, like, looking back now, in hindsight, I would have just sent you a text that night and said, "Hey, just the girls are having a sleepover," but also I didn't want to like ruin your night and piss you off. I
Right.
knew that you were like, in Galena having a good time. So it was kind of like a touchy subject.
I think that I don't I this is also like goes back to just I feel like why we co-parent so well because I am a hothead and you are not. And you would rather like talk it out and diffuse the situation where if like let's say the roles were reversed and you had come at me and been like a boundary was disrespected and blah blah blah, I would have been like F you. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is my like I would have immediately gotten like defensive. And like I think what's great about this topic is that through talking it out and through communicating, I have shifted my opinion. It was a hard no for me immediately just because I was so scared about, like, all the unknowns and, you really how do we ever really know somebody?
Right.
Do we trust our children with that person? It's like they have one life, and if I take the risk away, there's no risk at all, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that was initially my thinking of it, but as we've talked about this and as we've had all these different scenarios, I have shifted to where it's like, maybe depending on the person or the situation, I would feel
Right.
more comfortable.
Yeah.
So, that's kinda where I'm at with it, but
Yeah. Well, there are just a lot of factors that come into play, right? Like, so it's the kids' ages. It doesn't matter if they're a boy or a girl. Like,
right.
you know, if you are going to consider a sleepover, like what is like a really good age appropriate time to allow them? Is it 9 years old? Like,
Yeah.
like family members sleeping at family members' houses. Like, we've all grown up now and we've learned some really sad and scary stories from our friends that we never would have thought had happened, even
Yeah.
at their own grandparents' houses or aunts and uncles' houses. Like,
Yeah.
so those people closest to you sometimes are the people that,
Yeah.
maybe they're not the safest or they can't be trusted.
Right.
So it's really difficult, to make those exceptions. And
I think that where I'm at right now is just that it's, like, gonna kinda be like it's gonna be like an evolving situation as
Right.
they get older. Like, for me right now, I trust my mother-in-law, I trust our parents, right? Like, I would trust them at your parents' house, I would
Right.
trust them at Andy's parents' house, I would trust them at my in-laws, at my parents' house.
Yes.
They don't really have any sleepovers outside of that.
Right.
They haven't yet, but our oldest is 14 years old, and he's gonna be 15 soon, and he's a big kid. Like, I wouldn't be worried about him defending himself or being in a situation, and because we have such open communication in our households, I feel like he would come to me and tell me if something was wrong.
Right. Exactly. And that's like a really important thing too. Like even with Ava and Cora, like, 7 and 8 years old, like I feel like we have um built a really strong and open and honest, you know, relationship with them to where I feel like they're very comfortable talking about things that, you know, they're not comfortable with. Like
Right,
not just with me and you, because we're all girls, but like even with Andy, their dad, like,
right,
and I'm sure with Babe as well, right? Like they're very open
right.
and they're not shy.
Babe is my husband, by the
Oh
way.
yeah.
That's what my children call my husband is Babe, in case anyone's wondering.
And they're not shy either, right?
No, I'm
And
not
like
worried about Chuck telling me. I think it's like once something bad happens, it happens. I can't ever take it
right, you
away.
can't take that away.
I can never take it
Exactly.
away, and so, like, that's what scares me is that, like, they I don't have any worries at all that they wouldn't have a problem coming and telling me. It's the fact that I can never take that back,
Right.
and do I want that risk? Is that risk worth a
Yeah.
risk versus reward? Like, I
Right,
just, like,
exactly.
so
It's
the
like
reward is them having memories and experiences with friends or sleepovers,
right,
and I get that.
fostering independence and,
Correct.
allowing them to see how other people live and what other families are like.
Right.
Those less fortunate, those that are more fortunate than us. And, I think that those things are all come into play, right? And are all part of growing up.
Yeah.
And, you don't have to have sleepovers to get those experiences either, right?
Sure.
Like they can stay over there till 10 o'clock on a weekend and you can go pick them up. Like,
And we
if
just
you,
had that recently when Ava was invited to that sleepover with a classmate.
right,
She was so mad and she was crying and she was so upset. She was crying after I picked her up. She was crying before we dropped her off. But in my defense, I said, I'll pick you up at 9 p.m. And we did. For an 8-year-old, I feel like 9 p.m. is pretty late. But I was just like, it's like you can make all of those memories up until the 9 p.m. point. Um, but I wanted to read you. So I had recently posted on my Facebook something that said it was, there's a big sign that says no sleepovers. And so I'm going to read you some of the comments because this was actually like quite the heated debate. And I feel like a lot of people have strong opinions about this topic. So I'm going to read some of the situations to you, Jenna, and I want you to respond to the comments.
okay.
So the initial post that I reshared said, no, my kids can't spend the night. I don't care that you stayed the night at everyone's house growing up. I don't care that nothing bad ever happened to you. I don't care that your kids do it. I don't care that it's just one night. My kids don't need sleepovers to build friendships. They don't need late nights, unfamiliar environments, or adults I don't fully trust to have a good childhood. You do not actually know what goes on behind closed doors in someone else's home. You don't know their routines. You don't know who comes and goes. You don't know what's normalized there that isn't normal to you. But we're good people, in quotations. Cool. That still doesn't mean I know everything about your household, your boundaries, or the people around my child when I'm not there. So, no, my kids can't spend the night. And if that bothers you, the answer was never going to be yes anyway. So, when I had posted this was before we had started talking about this topic, and but it was after we had had like a shared experience with our kids with a sleepover.
Right.
So I will say that this is a little bit harsh, and my opinions can change, right? And as you're educated from other people, and other people's opinions can also educate you. And so
Right.
someone had commented and said, we have had many over the years and still do. I don't feel bad for that. I do know that many kids that are better off outside of their toxic household. Sometimes it takes a village. So what would you say to that? Because that like kind of shook me when she wrote that comment because I had never thought about that perspective. And I think for me, like my thing is like have all your little friends over to my house. I know
Right.
that I'm fine. Like I trust myself. And if their parents are okay with it, cool. You can have 6 or 8
Exactly.
friends over.
Yes.
I just don't want you somewhere else. So I think in this kind of goes both ways, but it was kind of like eye opening to me like from that perspective.
Right. I mean, there's probably millions of children who really look forward to those sleepovers, when their home life is less than ideal.
Yeah.
Um, and those sleepovers probably mean a lot more to them than, a lot of people know or understand. Certainly their friends, aren't really going to understand that because I just feel like kids that are the girls' age don't see
Right.
things, the way that adults do. I remember like going to people's houses that were less fortunate than me when I was a kid, but I never thought anything of it. There was no
Yeah.
judgment there, right?
No.
Like you're just like, like
Yeah.
it wasn't ever.
I had friends who, you know, were down by the lake in mansions. And then I had friends who were like over in the uptown area, which is
Yeah,
not a nice area. And my parents would let me sleep at both. They always
right.
were strong about talking to the parent,
Yep,
you know,
always talking to them.
but I mean, the things that went on in sleepovers at different ages obviously changed too.
Yeah,
So it's like, is there like this innocence that they're missing out on having these sleepovers? Will
right.
that change my opinion? But the next one said, nope, never ever. Under any circumstances, we don't even allow play dates if me or my husband aren't present. It's a different world we live in nowadays. That one
Mm,
I feel like is a little strong.
That's lot more harsh than
Yeah.
I would ever. I mean, no judgment, but like
Yeah.
that's just not how I parent. I think that it's good to allow your children to have that independence away from you to have new experiences with other children and learn how to communicate, learn how to play, learn how to socialize with other kids without their parents lingering about. I don't know if maybe that person meant like we just need to be on the property in the house, like while
Yeah.
they're playing, we don't need to be like in the same room. But like to me, that's how it kind of reads. But it's like, okay, like if we had a massive finished basement or something and, there are
Sure.
a bunch of kids downstairs, like, yeah, of course you're going to go down and check on them. But like, do you
Right.
really need to be there, like watching them?
Right, like,
Like,
if a mom just, like, if Ava invited a friend over for a play date and then, the child is getting dropped off and then the mom
the
is just,
mom's
like,
just coming in and sitting on your sofa, like,
doing laundry or
yeah, you're like, oh, sorry, but you're never having play dates with that one again. Like,
with that one. Real.
like, that would be like very strange,
Yeah.
Well, and that's funny because like when I think about that, it reminds me of like when the girls were younger in like kindergarten and they're getting dropped off for birthday parties,
Mhm.
like
The parents that
the
stay.
parents that stay. And Andy was one of them. Andy
He
would
stayed?
Yes, he
For
stayed
what?
and lingered. He stayed at the one at Action Territory, and I was super pregnant, and he like calls me, and he's like, "Hey, I have to go to work, but like Cora wants to stay. Can you come here?" I was like, so I had to like stay there with these people.
Never.
I was like, "This is awful."
I mean, I always ask, I'm like, "Are they
Yeah,
good? Do you need me to stick around?" And I hope and
yeah.
pray to God that the answer is, "No, you're
Like
good. Come back at 7:30 to pick them up,"
they're in
because
like a public
you
place
know
at
what
like
I
a bowling alley or something. Like you do not
know.
need to linger.
Because you know what I don't wanna do more than even have a birthday party for my child and 10 other children that aren't mine
Yeah,
is stay
yeah.
and watch those
Watch
unknown
all the
children,
chaos.
especially if
Yeah,
it's not my
living.
child. So
Oh,
this
sorry,
next
that was a
no,
sidebar.
you're good, I love that. This next one says, which I feel like you and I well, at least I can resonate with a little bit more. It says, "It depends on the parents for me. My kids have had sleepovers, but only with adults I 1000% trust. I'd also let them sleep at a couple of other adults' homes because I trust those adults 100,000%. Anything less than that, and they can't. Not happening. I have to know the parents for at least 6 months to a year first." So, I mean, I think that kind of segues into what we were just talking about.
Right.
So, like, it's funny because, okay, so for example, we had a debate on the sleep not a debate, but, whatever. We had a tussle. Sounds like we were fighting.
Tussle.
What's the right word? Anyway, we had differing opinions on a sleepover. I felt like a boundary was crossed, whatever. We got over it. We talked it out. Great. But then recently, as in like last weekend, the girls were invited to another sleepover. And that mom prefaced it by saying, I know how you feel about sleepovers. If you say no, that's totally understandable. But I want to let you know that I am not drinking tonight. We're having some family friends over, but they will be supervised the entire time. It's just the girls. And, we know this family quite well. We've known them for years.
Exactly.
The age of that child is appropriate for the age. It is one other child there, 2 our 2 were going. but they're all in the same age group. So I feel like they're all in the same maturity level, you know. So and I said yes, but I called Andy and I said, I don't know what to do because I feel like a hypocrite right now. And he said, well, you got to make the decision. And I'm like, well, give me some advice. He's like, no, this is on you. Like, so he kind of, yeah, but he kind of gave me a taste of my own medicine because I feel like, you know, not saying he doesn't care, but I feel like he is more lax about it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's not that he doesn't care. He wouldn't just let them sleep over at like some
no,
random person's house. And he's more lax than I am, but he just doesn't worry the way that we do. Like
right.
he just doesn't have that. He doesn't have anxiety, which must be nice. Like
Sounds
you
like,
know, he doesn't ruminate and overthink and, do all of those things that we do. As moms, I think just generally moms
for
tend to
sure.
worry more. Not to say that dads don't too, but
Correct.
like I feel like it depends on the scenario and the situation. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of where I'm at. And like the most recent comment that you have read, where it's like, I'm perfectly fine with sleepovers as long as I 100% trust, those people.
Mm-hmm.
And to play devil's advocate, it's like, okay, how well do we really know people? What do we know? What don't we know that goes on behind closed doors?
Right.
I mean, how many times have we, found out that serial killers were like,
Right.
oh, yeah, they were just the nicest guy, had whole families and like,
Yeah.
whatever.
No, that's
Like,
this
so
this is my anxiety talking.
yeah,
I know that my
we
opinion is
know,
fueled by that, but
yeah, we know that these things can happen, right? But like, I think that as a mom and as a person generally, I feel like I have um a very good judge of character and I I wouldn't allow my kids to sleep somewhere if something was telling me no. If there was any sense of doubt where I felt uncomfortable, I would be like, no, not tonight.
yeah.
Maybe another time, like
Mhm.
especially if it were like somebody I didn't know. But like um if it's somebody that I know, then I'm probably going to be much more comfortable with them sleeping over there, especially if they've slept there, multiple times before, right? It's like
Right.
that first time that's
Well,
like
and is it a
really
family friend versus, someone like a classmate at school?
right, like
Is it
just
a
a
family
random
member?
birthday sleepover,
Right,
or
but
like
there's always argument too. It's like I feel like most times when bad things happen, they are with family members,
yeah.
unfortunately.
And that's what I mean.
So
You and I
it's
have had that conversation
yeah,
multiple times
right,
where we grew up and we found out when we were in our 30s that some really terrible things happened to our girlfriends. And it wasn't at strangers' homes, it was at their family members' houses.
right.
So it is one of those things where I think that you just have to use your judgment as a parent and, whether that be situational and you end up feeling like a hypocrite at the end of the day, like who cares what other people think, right?
Right. I
Like
think
you're
as long
going
as
based
we're
off
like
of
communicating.
yeah, exactly. As long as we're communicating what's going on and that other person is like either maybe not 100% comfortable, but like trusting in you to, make the call and be like, hey,
Right.
like they're going to be fine. Like I've known this person for
Hmm.
20 years. They have kids of their own. They're good people. I mean, you've known them for 10 years. Like, it's
Right.
going to be okay. And where you feel like, okay, all right, we'll try it, or if you're like, absolutely not.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, it's like one of those things, right? Like, where do we draw that line when it's in between?
I really like this one. So this lady said, in our house, our kids can sleep over at a family's house, but we have a safe word. And I just thought that was interesting. And she said,
Hmm.
for example, say your safe word is pickles. So you use that to get out of things that you don't want to do, and then we become the bad guy. So let's say a child calls and is like, Amber really wants me to sleep over, mom. And I'll say, did you want me to get you pickles from the grocery store? And she goes, yes, mom, please get the pickles I like from the store. And then I would say, no, you can't sleep over tonight. You didn't do blah, blah,
Oh,
blah.
I
And then
like
I'm the
that.
bad guy, which I loved that because there is sometimes, so like, for example, when Ava and Cora just had that sleepover,
Yeah.
um, the mom had called me because Ava was starting to feel anxious, and not because she didn't wanna be there, she didn't feel safe, because she doesn't like sleeping in her own bed. I mean, she wants to have her own bed.
Yes.
She doesn't like, even she's done that at our parents' house, like,
Yep.
she does not wanna
Yeah,
share a
at
bed with
Andy's mom's
somebody.
house,
Yeah, oh,
like,
yeah, she
there's
does at
too
my
many
parents'.
kids, like
She doesn't like it, she likes her space,
Yeah.
and so she had kinda started crying, and she was, like, having, like, buyer's remorse and was like, "Oh, do I wanna come home?"
Right.
You know, and then she made the decision to stay, but it was, like, that active communication that I had with that mom, though, as well. Like, she knew that I
Contacted you.
and she also knew that how I felt. Like, she
Right.
knew that, "Hey, like, we don't really do a lot of sleepovers. I'm nervous,"
Right.
you know? So
Exactly. And well, it's good when you have that active communication with the other parent too. It makes you feel more comfortable. Like, you know,
absolutely.
you're getting they're sending videos and photos, like, that they're watching the kids and hanging out and they're doing arts and crafts or things like that. It's just like nice. It's not like a constant string of, that they're blowing you
Right,
up.
like, Michelle
Every
sends us
once in a while to
pictures
get
and,
yeah, to
you
just be
know.
like, "Oh, they're having
Yeah,
fun." Like, even my babysitter would
right.
do that when she would have River during the day. It was just nice to get
It gives you that peace of
people with
mind.
photos of him at the park or eating
Right.
a snack. Like, it's just like, "Oh, they're having fun." Like,
Yeah.
it's
The
just
the rest of the comments were pretty much all the same, but basically either we don't do sleepovers, but I let kids stay here,
which is always an option. I think that's, like, my goal is to
have the
I mean,
home, have, like, the
be
sleepover
the
house.
house that
Yeah.
is the sleepover house, the slumber party house.
Yeah.
But there are probably other parents out there that are like, "No sleepovers," and that's perfectly fine. I would never be offended if a parent didn't feel comfortable having their kids sleep over. I totally understand other people's point of views and their boundaries, and I would never
Right.
judge someone for that. So it's not a big deal, but I think that's like the goal, right? Is to be the house where everybody wants to
Oh,
go.
that would be ideal.
And
Or just a friend's house in general. I mean, I remember, like,
yeah,
we all had friends growing up where it was like that was the house,
right.
and it's like, but what makes it that house?
My
I think
house
it's
was
just
that house, and my house was
I
having,
love that.
being a latchkey kid and having a single mom that worked until 7 o'clock at night. So it was like,
I'm gonna close the Facebook comments by just reading what I ended up commenting, because it really did kind of turn into this, like, powerful conversation. And so I had said at the end of the comment thread, I said, "I didn't think that this would start such a powerful conversation. I just see a lot of parents in our generation shifting away from sleepover culture with your children. But I also firmly believe that every family is different and that you have to do what feels right for you. I'm sorry for all the terrible experiences that people have had, and for my family, it's just not a risk I'm willing to take yet. Maybe that'll change at some point, but for now, this is what feels right to us. And it's nice to know that others are starting to feel the same way. No judgment ever, whichever way you lean.
right.
I think all of you are amazing parents for even caring about the situation at all, no matter what your take is on it." And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I think that it's super interesting to see, there's obviously all these different sides, and it's like a clickbait topic right now, right? Like,
Right.
sleepover versus no sleepovers. But I think that just the fact that people even care to have an opinion shows that you're a
Shows that
parent.
they're yeah, exactly. Like, shows that they're actually
Right.
thinking about it. Like,
And I do
"Oh,
think it'll change. Like, for the girls, I think it'll change as I feel that they get older and that they can gauge those kind of situations right now. Like, we had just talked about how, like, we have a seventh grader in our family, and he's in health class right now. And so he's starting to learn about things, that are appropriate for his age, but aren't appropriate for the girl's age. And
yeah,
so we had talked
exactly."
about how, like, is a sleepover okay if there are teenagers in the house? If
Right.
they're having a sleepover with somebody who's 4 or 5 years older than them and knows all of these things and then could be telling them.
And that's such a big like, it's not a big age difference when you're older, but when you're young, I mean, 4 to 5 years is,
Right,
a big age gap.
right.
Um, when you're 7 years old and you're having a sleepover with a 12-year-old, it's,
Right, they're gonna know more things that I think it's
exactly.
like, and I keep going back to that thought as well. It's like you are innocent for a blink of an eye in your childhood.
Right.
And if I can keep my children for innocent as long as possible, not naive, but innocent, because they have the
Right.
rest of their life to know about the big bad scary world
Yeah,
and all the things in it.
exactly.
And so I think that's kind of what I'm trying to preserve right now. But
Right.
I think also, I mean, there's scenarios, like, single moms who don't ever get to catch a break and they don't have any co-parenting help whatsoever. And so maybe them having a sleepover at a friend's house is so they can pick up a shift, or they can go grocery shopping, or they can just sit down and have a glass of
Be
wine, or
themselves and decompress.
yeah,
Like,
there's so many different scenarios where it does, and I think that the ability to just sit back and reflect on other people's opinions is what makes this topic easier for me to talk about, because I don't think I'm like a hard, like, absolutely not, like,
Right.
how dare you.
Definitely. No. And I mean, like, that's just how it is, right? Like, that's just how, like, you can't be so opinionated when it comes to stuff like that and you're a co-parent,
Right.
right? Like, I mean, that's like one of the unfortunate sides of co-parenting. If you struggle with control, you have to, you know, give up some of that control. You're not always going to have it exactly the way that you want it. And luckily for us, you and I are very similar when it comes to like parenting styles and values and all of that kind of stuff. So we're very lucky, but not everybody is as lucky as we are. Just letting go of some of that control. I mean, even before I was in the picture, it's probably very difficult to, when you have to let the kids go to Andy's and like,
Yeah.
like just the way that.
Well, I think that's what's so nice about our friendship is that I look at you as like an ally. Like you are not as lax as my ex is, as your partner is.
Yes, no,
But
not. I am the strict
but
parent of the house.
right, but I would say that there are some topics that you aren't as like firmly as I am. So I think it's nice because I kind of look at you as an ally to where it's like, I can vent to you and you can at least
And
it's
I'm
also
going to
it's
listen.
but it's also
And
the lawyer in you, I think.
I am very diplomatic.
And you
It's
take
just
people aside.
mediator through and through.
Right.
Like truly, like I love to play devil's advocate. I can see everybody's point of view and I can understand everybody's point of view. It doesn't mean I'm, going that would be my point of view, but would I'm able to understand why people feel certain ways about certain things, and in this case, sleepovers, right? Like, I totally get it, and which is why I don't judge, I'm just.
Well, I want you to talk about how, like, because you said at one point that it just makes you sad because sleepovers were such like a monumental part of your childhood growing up. So
Right.
can you talk about that?
Well, I guess, like, for me, again, like most people slept at my house, and when I had sleepovers, it was with my very best friends. And when I think back on it, because you and I have also had this conversation, we've had this conversation many times, but like, when you think about like teenage kids in the house or boys and, worrying about dads and like
Mhm.
just, that kind of thing. I think back on it, all of my best friends were only children, just like me, and they were all their parents were divorced. So like they all lived with their single moms and it's like
Single
that
moms
just
in the
like
90s.
literally
You guys.
every single one of my best friends growing up, and they're still my best friends now. Um, every single one of us, only children and had single moms. So like,
Well, and they were also your best friends, so your mom had built relationships with them for years. But like, I
yeah.
think more so just talking about
So
the
like,
memories you made at those.
yeah, just, I mean, so many amazing memories, just core memories, all the goofy stuff we would do, innocent goofy stuff.
Right.
Like, I mean, and when we got into like junior high, we were just weirdos. We would dress up like men and like put on wigs and like walk around town. And we would have been YouTube famous like nowadays if
Yeah.
we grew up nowadays. Like we did like the weirdest stuff. Like we would, and then of course it was always you're gonna have a sleepover, but you're gonna stay up all night. Just those things where
Yeah.
like, and that's like every single, like you're putting on movie after movie and you're doing goofy stuff and like
Yeah.
prank calls all of the time.
Core memories.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, just
And
things
that
like
and when I think
that.
about that, like that does I don't want my children to miss out on that.
But the girls are also still young,
I
like at
agree.
7 and 8, I was able to have sleepovers, but I wasn't having a ton of sleepovers yet. Like I didn't develop these friendships until I was in like third, fourth, fifth grade, so like, it was still in third grade. And like, so
Right, like, I don't think they've even built, like, school friendships yet
yeah, it's like
enough
close
to
enough
where
to
right,
where it's like
right.
where it would warrant that. I think back in the day
Yep.
it was just different. Like the 90s was different, You just you hung out outside of school with your friends, so your parents got to know each other. Like I would walk to my friend's house after school and we
Right.
would hang out, and then like my mom would pick me up after work. And like,
Mhm.
like just things like that. So like my mom developed relationships with my friend's mom. So it made it easier for her to allow me to sleep there. Like she always had to talk to them on the phone. Like if there was a sleepover up until I was probably in like eighth grade. After that, it was like, yeah, you're sleeping at Fran's house, whatever, you know. And at that point, we're getting up to where, you know, high school where we're like lying about sleeping at each other's houses.
Which,
But
right, like, and
you
with
know,
yeah, like, age is
change
definitely a factor as well, right?
right.
Like, I think that, like,
Definitely.
once I feel like they're old enough to where they can defend themselves or communicate or, you know, they have their own phone to where they can let me know if something's wrong or, you know, I don't know. I think that like I said, it's gonna be an evolving situation. It's not a hard no for me. It is situational, depending on the person. And we aren't like no, you can't sleep at grandma and grandpa's house. I mean,
Right.
they're having to sleep over at my parents' house tomorrow. So I mean I think it's definitely an evolving situation. I think that like I said, it's kind of an evolving situation, and I think that our takeaway from this episode is that as long as we're having active communication and that we feel safe with where our children are at and what they're doing, that's what matters most to me. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in 5, 10 years or, you know, whatever. But I think just for right now, it's what feels
We don't
good.
have a crystal ball.
Right.
Going to be an ever evolving thing. And I think that's what parenting is all about. And also, you're learning along with your kids at every stage of their life as you watch them grow. Also, like, yeah, you've had two other children that have been this age before, but all kids are different. Right? So each parenting experience with all your different kids is going to be different.
Right.
It's never going to
Yeah.
be the exact same.
The boys who are 14 and 12 are definitely at a different, I feel differently about them
Right.
than I do about the girls at
Exactly.
8 and 7.
Yeah, I mean, like the real lesson is we're not debating sleepovers, but we're negotiating that trust and
Right.
safety and boundaries between, you know, the parents and making sure that we are making the right judgment call to keep our kids safe and also communicating that,
Right.
you know, with one another.
Next week on the Co-parenting Chronicles, we are talking about from awkward to allies.
It'll be all about creating a bond with a co parent when it's still new, uncomfortable, and uncertain.
And just a little bit more about us, right? A little bit more of how we got here.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
all right.
Love it.
Love
Bye.
you.